All right, guys, so a lot of times I try to make the point of and try to explain to you guys how a lot of these politicians and people in the media as well, too, especially people in the media, they are simply actors, okay? They're no different than the people in Hollywood, right? Except they're not acting in a movie. They're actually acting in real life. And their acting actually has a real life effect on people, okay? Because they have constituents that they're supposed to be serving. But unfortunately, a lot of these politicians, again, they've taken on a role, okay? They're trying to appeal to a certain group of people, even though they may not necessarily have those beliefs, right? They might not actually believe the things that they say. And when it comes time to actually show that, hey, I'm fighting for the people, that I believe the things I say, they always fall short, okay? And you've seen that on a large scale when it came to the pandemic and how the Democrats constantly got caught maskless while virtue signaling about how everybody else should wear a mask, including chastising conservatives and Republicans whom didn't want to wear masks, right? Called them super spreaders, said they was responsible for killing people. But every time you look, Democrats weren't following their own rules because they never actually really believed in the rules that they were trying to incorporate on other people. They simply wanted power, okay? That's all it is. Now, in this situation right here, our favorite politician, AOC, okay, we got a bunch of favorite politicians on this channel. She's been exposed once again, okay? Because in the past, she's been exposed for the hypocrisy that a lot of Democrats have been exposed on, which it comes to the whole mask stuff, which I just talked about. But this time she's getting exposed on something that is supposed to be the bread and butter of what she's supposed to be about, which is her support for unions. And in this story right here, AOC is going to get caught blatantly lying and exposed after trying to piggyback off the success of Amazon union workers that she previously abandoned. So I want to talk about that. But before we get into that, I just want to let you guys know, if you like my channel, you like my commentary, you can support my channel using the links in the description below. You support the Patreon, you support the PayPal, you support the merch. There are multiple ways to support the channel if you would like to do so, including getting yourself one of these everything woke turns to ish shirts, which I got to tell you guys, I get a whole lot of attention when I am traveling with this shirt. When I wear this shirt out in public, I promise you. I was actually in the airport recently, and a lot of people came up to me and was like, hey, I like that shirt, right? It happened a lot, okay? Matter of fact, I was in Walmart last night, and this black woman that was working in Walmart asked me, what does my shirt say, right? And I said, everything woke turns to ish. And she was like, I'm offended. And I said, good. This shirt is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. So I'm just saying, if you want to offend some people, you want to get a whole lot of compliments, get yourself one of these everything woke turns to ish shirts, okay? I promise you, you will get a lot of attention. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into AOC getting exposed as a fraudulent individual. So as some of you may be familiar with, Amazon's workers have been attempting to unionize, okay? And there's been two main kind of warehouses that has been at the center of this. One in Alabama, Bessemer, Alabama, in which they previously, I think last year, or maybe even earlier this year, I can't remember off the top of my head, they had a vote on unionizing, and that ultimately failed. However, that election is being challenged, right? You know, the thing that they say that you can't do, they're doing that, right? So they're re-looking at the ballots and stuff like that, and the outcome of that may potentially change, okay? And there is another union effort going on in New York, Staten Island. Okay, the Amazon workers are trying to unionize there, and it looks like they may end up successfully unionizing, as some early vote totals have come in to suggest that it might be successful. And if it is successful, either one of those, then it will be the first successful attempt to unionize at the country's second largest employer, right, which is Amazon. Now, Amazon is against this for obvious reasons, right? They don't want a union because unions are a headache for big companies, especially big multinational corporations. Now, with that being said, the early vote totals are in for New York, and it looks like they might be successful. Now, AOC takes the time to try to piggyback off the success of the New York Amazon labor union, but that's just one problem, right? That's just one small problem. The problem is that previously in the past, not too long ago, AOC actually abandoned these workers after promising that she would show up to a rally they was having in support of the union, okay? And that kind of pissed a lot of people off, and I talked about it when it happened at the time, and I pointed out that, hey, this is a prime example of how AOC ain't really who she says she is. She's not really about what she says she's about, okay? Again, this was obvious to me when she weren't supporting the unions that were against the vaccine mandate, right? She wouldn't support those unions. All of a sudden, unions and what they want didn't really matter, right? So yeah, let's actually read here as she's being called out by Krystal and Sagar and Jaidi, who was a part of the Breaking Points podcast. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that show. That show is supposed to be, you know, two individuals, Krystal, who's a progressive, and Sagar and Jaidi, who says he's conservative, but it's kind of hard to tell when it comes to him. But they have a good show, and they talk about stuff like this a lot. And she's actually calling out AOC on the BS, as she says, here's the guy who organized the union drive talking about how you left them high and dry. These are your constituents, and you couldn't be bothered to show up until they're on the cusp of victory. Yeah. So let's actually watch this clip here of this guy who was one of the leaders of this union drive here talk about this.
So talk to me about, you mentioned, you know, down in Bessemer, Bernie went, you had celebrities going. I think Danny Glover went down there. President of the United States makes a mention of it, although I personally think he could have gone a lot further, but he makes a mention of it. What has been the political reaction from that same group of people to you all's efforts?
There is none. I mean, we don't obviously it's the proof is in the pudding. You know, we had politicians cancel on us the day before our rallies. Mm-hmm. You know, AOC, who else? You know, Mondaire Jones, you know, people I spoke to in person and personally invited them to come to Staten Island to talk to their constituents. You know, they have people that work there in their district, you know, to try to help, you know, gain some support. No, we had no politicians from the left or the squad show up yet. And we don't receive the same attention as Bessemer at all. And I think it's quite obvious. We don't have the same resources. We just barely made it here, you know. We're on a week-to-week budget. You know, we don't have money. And it's just really disheartening when I think about the whole thing, how they abandoned us. And, you know, I kept quiet about a lot of things because, you know, as soon as I say something negative, you know, they're going to try to point me out like, oh, Chris, you got an evil or whatever. But it's the truth. You know, the truth is that this campaign should be the most talked about campaign in the country.
All right. So, as you guys heard there, this guy is calling out AOC and people like Bernie and all the other people, the squad, on the fact that they piggyback and virtue signal and run victory laps when it comes to union issues that are at a national level, right? When it was national news, okay, what was going on in Alabama. But when it comes to something that was going on in New York, something that is not necessarily national news, not a whole lot of people know about, they don't bother to show up and support, even though what they're doing is basically the same thing. The significance is basically the same, okay? Now, again, regardless of whether or not you support unions, I understand that Republicans, conservatives aren't necessarily the most pro-union or, you know, union-friendly group of people from an ideological standpoint, but it's about principle here. It's about the fact that this is what they claim to support. However, it seems like they only really care to support it, okay, or to put energy and effort and time into it when they can get a lot of media attention, okay, when they can be put into the spotlight. And this is especially bad for AOC because it's Staten Island. She literally has people that are from her district that work in that warehouse, right? And she did not bother to show up after promising to show up and fight for these people, okay? Yeah, this is bad. This is a very bad look for AOC. She responds and she says, the warehouse isn't my district and maybe you should look at a map before claiming so. One scheduling conflict aside, we have requested oversight investigations into Amazon, met with Amazon workers in the Woodside warehouses and more. Hope you do more due diligence next time. Okay, so this is her response to Krystal. And then Christian Smalls who I believe is the guy in this video right here. He responds and says, shaking my head, AOC, that's terrible. Workers from your district definitely commute to Staten Island. I know them personally. Maybe you should do your due diligence. Again, this is a guy that's on the ground, that's a part of the movement, that's doing the work, calling out AOC on her fraudulence here, right? Again, here's the news story and when this happened. Amazon workers heartbroken after AOC bails to march with them, right? This is her. Look at her picture. This is her with the guy, okay? Taking a picture, taking a selfie. You know, and at this point, AOC had promised this man that, hey, I'm going to show up, okay? I'm going to be there for you. And when push come to shove, she wasn't there. So now she's getting called out about it, right? Here's another thread going on here in which Jordan Sheridan actually responds to AOC. Again, this is progressive on progressive violence here. All right. He says, I was told by workers that your folks told them at last minute it was a security issue, not a scheduling conflict. Whether your district or not, you would think a New York congressman could have tweeted support, particularly in final weeks, for one of the most important union drives in the U.S. Okay, so this dude is basically calling her out on her lies, right? In which she's saying that, oh, I had a scheduling conflict. When at the time it wasn't about scheduling. She claimed it was a security issue, okay? And look, this guy's not even asking for much. He's asking for support with a tweet, right? That ain't really gonna do anything, okay? The real support here should be her actually showing up. So she responds, she says, security was an issue as well. 2021 included a lot of high-level threats on my life, which limited what activities I was able to do, especially those outside. The combination of that, plus when we were able to get resources time to secure them, create scheduling, plus logistical conflicts. Again, this is hilarious because if you guys remember last year, AOC participated in a lot of events. Okay, a lot of events that, you know, hey, I would say, you know, she made time and effort for and she didn't seem to have security concerns about, right? So let's actually read a little bit more here. With respect, there's no security concerns when sending out support to trying to win the first unionize Amazon to 13 million followers. Your voice and organizing power makes a difference. And then Krystal says no security concerns at the Met Gala. Ding, 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 right? No security concerns at the Met Gala, right? So she can show up to the Met Gala, right? She has time to put in her schedule to show up there, to hang out with rich people, right? There are no security concerns there, okay? She was maskless, so she can't blame it on the pandemic, but she can't show up to show support for people that she claims to support, the bread and butter of what she claims she's about, okay? Again, the person that designed AOC's dress, guys, the designer is a tax cheat. This is the same person that says tax the rich. The designer of her dress doesn't pay her employees, okay? She avoids taxes, and she's married to a damn near billionaire, okay? This is who AOC hangs out with and associates herself with while claiming to be for the working class. So she gets called out even further here by Saga and Jaidy. AOC canceled on Amazon union activists when needed. Her telling them she's not doing public appearances anymore. A few weeks later, she appeared at the Met Gala and never got back to them. Now she's bandwagoning since they've been successful. Lucky Krystal has receipts. Now, AOC did get a little bit of support here from some simps, despite her hypocrisy and blatant lying and fraudulence. As Dan Price says, I love and admire Krystal greatly, but I have scheduling conflicts constantly. Life happens, things come up. I don't think it's realistic to ask one person to be at every event and solve every problem. Krystal says, not one member of the squad showed up. They all ghosted Chris, and this wasn't just another event. It was the most substantial worker-led organizing effort at one of the most powerful companies in the world. They all had excuses for all the many months of this organizing drive. AOC says, so what exactly is the insinuation here? That we are secretly in the tank for Amazon, that we're sellouts, despite leading congressional investigations into Amazon taking huge blowback to call out the scam HQ2 deal, meeting with workers in our district warehouses. It's reaching. I don't think it's a reach. I think that the insinuation here is that when push comes to shove, when it comes to doing the dirty work, right, for an issue, okay, or for an event that doesn't have national attention, you didn't show up, you weren't there. All those things she's talking about had national attention, right? And for you not to show up to something that has the same amount of significance, the only difference is that it's not national news, really says something, okay? Sagan Jaidi replies to AOC here, and he says, the accusation is that the organizer of the successful union effort you are trying to celebrate says you abandoned him in his time of need, made up a BS excuse, and then went to the Met Gala. It's actually very simple. Ding, 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 ding. It's very simple, right? It's very simple. So, yeah, I mean, they're calling her out, right? They're calling her out, and rightfully so, for the fact that, you know, she's interested in doing, you know, more things like virtue signaling, going to the Met Gala, trolling Ted Cruz, right, than actually going to help her constituents on issues that she claims are the bread and butter of what she's about, right? But again, when it came to this very significant effort that was going to result in something that was going to basically make history, she went ghost, right? She went ghost because there was no attention. There was nothing to get out of it, right? And again, it's just another example of how these politicians really don't care about what they claim they care about if they can't get any positive news coverage from it. If there's nothing to be gained from it, from them, from a publicity standpoint, they don't really care that much. Again, it reminds me of the Maxine Waters story that I did yesterday, in which, you know, she didn't want people to know about the fact that she told homeless people to go home, right? And she actually threatened a reporter, tried to get him not to run the story because it wasn't a positive news story for her, okay? But she was totally fine with the local news station running a glowing story about her being there, okay? But she didn't want the real story, which is that, hey, you know, you had these people show up asking why in the world do we have a homelessness crisis and to help us, and her basically telling these homeless people to go home, to F off, to don't ask her any questions, right? She don't want the real story out there, okay? Again, these politicians, man, I don't know how many times these Democrats and these progressives have to get exposed for people to realize that they're just not who they say they are. They don't care about the things that they claim they care about nearly as much as they say they do, right? Unless they can get something out of it, unless it can benefit them in some way, okay? If it's not a national news story, if they're not getting a lot of positive press, whatever. Who cares if it's going to be the first time that a union was successful at organizing in the second largest employer in the country? Who cares? Not a big deal to AOC, right? But the Met Gala, trolling Ted Cruz, right? AOC got time to tweet and to go to those events, okay? Just saying. I'm just saying. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.